Hello YouTube, this is my review of the Vango Cairngorm 200 tent. If you're wondering where I am today, we are in the Lake District, just next to Bowfell, which is over there. I'm here for 4 to 5 days wild camping here, and if you want to see the full video of my 4 to 5 day camping trip, click the link just here. The Vango Cairngorm 200 tent is a 2-person tent. There is also a Cairngorm 100 and 300, which are 1 and 3-person tents. Now it says this tent is a 200-person tent or 2-person tent, but I like to think of it more as a spacious 1-person tent. I'll pop the technical details up screen here. The tent itself is okay. Obviously it's very waterproof, 5,000mm hydrostatic head with a 6,000mm floor sheet or ground sheet. It's a single pole construction. You have also got 2 alloy poles on each side like this, just to prop up the ends here. And underneath there you can see there is ventilation. Now there are only 2 ventilation holes, one at that end and one at that end, which is okay, but I have found that on cold nights especially, you do get quite a lot of condensation on the inside of the fly sheet. To help that a little bit, what you can do, there is a zip here on both sides, and you can unzip it from the top and the bottom. So what I like to do is just unzip it there, just to get a bit of extra ventilation and air flowing through your tent. Guy lines, there's 1 either side and 2 at each end as well. It's a fairly sturdy tent. Obviously it is a tunnel tent, single pole, so you don't want to pitch it up in windy conditions or in extreme winds. The guy lines themselves work pretty well. It's got a little plastic line lock here, you just pull it like that to tighten it and it works perfectly. I haven't had any trouble with them coming loose, but I haven't tried this in extreme winds. So if there are any problems with that, I will let you know in a later video. The construction itself is pretty good. The stitching all seems solid, and there haven't been any loose threads or anything coming apart on this. The poles on the tent are alloy poles, aluminium, which are really light, strong. I haven't had any problems with them coming apart at all or bending. Seem pretty rigid. Now going inside the tent. Now this is the main entrance, and on the main entrance we have a little porch area, probably enough to store 1 large hiking backpack. If there are 2 of you sleeping in here, you'll probably have to stack them one on top of the other, which isn't ideal because one of them probably will touch the outer fly sheet. So with the tent I have just cut out a tarp as well to use as a tent footprint, and this just makes taking the inner out so much more easier because I can kneel on this and also keep the inner part of the tent nice and clean and relatively dry. The reason I don't pitch the inner and outer at the same time is because you do get condensation, and you don't want to be packing your tent away with the inner wrapped up in the outer fly sheet getting all wet. So yeah, pitch the outer first and then pop the inner in separately, and when you do store it, probably best to store the inner or outer in a waterproof bag just to keep them separated. Anyway, going inside, you can see that there is 1 large rectangular space here, which is where I sleep, and a smaller triangular section over here, and that is where I prefer to keep my large hiking backpack. At a push you could fit 2 people in here. You'd probably be better off sleeping head to toe, because as you can see, sort of, there's probably about 50 centimeters. As you can see, when I'm laying down in this tent, squished up to the door here. You could fit a second person if you're head to toe. I can stretch my arm out just about enough here. So it's reasonably spacious, but I would consider it more as a generous one-person tent. The height of the tent is pretty generous. I am 5'6" and I can sit up in this tent perfectly fine. As you can see, there's a good, 6 inches on top of my head. Good 6 inches clearance. Of course, if I go that way, it gets less, but you want to sit up in the middle. So yeah, I can sit up perfectly fine, which makes getting changed easier in the mornings, especially if it's a cold morning. You want to put some thermals on. That's not such a big hassle. On the other side, you can see that there is another door. This door hasn't got a porch on it, unlike the other side. But again, you can open this up and you can have, 2 doors open on each side. Pockets. Vango have been quite generous with the pockets. You've got 3 pockets here, which are quite large, enough to fit a map, phone, whatever. You've also got a secondary pocket here, which I believe is to store the door. However, you can put anything else in there when this is zipped up. On the top, you have got 2 little mesh pockets as well for putting a headlight that I like to do. And talking about lights, you have also got 3 fabric loops here for attaching little lanterns or whatever you like to them. The tent itself weighs in at just under 2 kilograms, and that is for the 2-person tent. For the 100 and 300 Cairngorm tents, I'll pop the specs on screen right now. Also, the Vango Cairngorm 200 tents do come with a tension band system. And what this is, I'll just show you on one side. They come with a little tension band here. And what you can do with this tension band is run it through this Velcro hole here and attach it to these little clips here. And what that does is just pulls down the tent pole, makes it more rigid so it's less susceptible to flexing in strong winds. The ground sheet itself is pretty good. You've probably got a good 2 inches off the ground, so it should keep you fairly dry in the rain or if you're camping on wet grass. There you can see the vent holes there. The main downside to this tent, I think, is the fact that it's very hard to pitch with the inner and outer completely separate. Every time I've pitched it, no matter how long I've taken, I always end up with part of the inner touching the outer fly sheet. And of course that results in condensation building up inside the tent and soaking the inner skin, as you can see here. These are the main areas that do get condensation on the inner layer. Same with there, you do get a few drips, but that is to be expected with almost any tent. However, if the inner was more separated from the outer, you wouldn't have this problem. But overall, the Vango Cairngorm 200 tent is a pretty good tent, apart from the condensation problem, but that is to be expected when you're camping, especially in the cold. It was 5 degrees last night, so I shouldn't really be surprised at that. But as you can see there, there's not much clearance between the upper and lower layers.